Welcome to lecture 5 on module 5 of subject ARM microcontroller and embedded systems. Subject code is 15EC or 17EC62. So in the previous lecture we discussed about multiprocessing, multitasking, okay, so and then how the multitasking is done. So what are the three steps, or you can say the mechanisms involved, the procedures involved in multitasking. So you might remember the three steps or three mechanisms. Which are those? So if I go back, the three important uh, procedures that we discussed was first was context retrieval, then context save, then context switch. Right? So if you remember, context switch, save, and retrieval. So this we discussed, and when this will happen, how this will happen, what is the meaning of context switching, what is the meaning of context retrieval, what is the meaning of context save. We discussed about that. Then we discussed about types of multitasking: cooperative, preemptive, and non-preemptive. So now, and we also discussed about uh, scheduler selection, how we select the scheduler based on these uh, criteria. So which are the criteria? CPU utilization, throughput, turnaround time, waiting time, response time. So we discussed about this, and then we discussed about the three queues, right? So job queue, ready queue, and device queue. So we shall now discuss about preemptive scheduling. So I had given an example yesterday. So I had taken the example of a clinic and patients who are trying to get the appointment, or the patients who want to see the doctor or to consult the doctor, and how the patients will be given the chance, right? And I also gave the example of an attender who will look after the patients before they go and consult the doctor, right? So you have to remember this example, because with reference to the same example I'll explain this preemptive scheduling also. So as the name itself indicates, preemptive or preempt means forceful deallocation of a resource. So in this case, forceful deallocation of the CPU. So what is the meaning of this? Once you allocate CPU to a process, there will be let's say n number of processes. So out of those n number of processes, you select any one process and you give the CPU, or you allocate the CPU to that process. So once you give the CPU, you can also take away the CPU. Okay, at any point of time, the scheduler. So you, in the sense here, the scheduler can take away the CPU from the process or task at any given point of time. So this is what is, and this takeaway is forceful. So the process which is using the CPU will not itself surrender the CPU, or will not itself let go the CPU, but the scheduler will forcefully, you can say, retrieve the CPU back from the process. So this is what is preemptive forceful deallocation. Okay. So every task in a ready queue gets a chance to execute. So in preemptive multitasking. So I gave an example yesterday. So what was the example? So 10 patients waiting to consult the doctor, and there is an attender to look after this consultation. So that attender, what he will do is, out of 10 patients, he will select any one patient. So how he will select any one patient, we'll come to that later. But just remember that out of 10 patients, one patient will get the chance to consult the doctor, and who gets this chance to consult the doctor will be decided by the attender or the scheduler. So he will give chance to anyone. So that person will go and consult the doctor, right? But it is not, you can say, that person who is given the chance will not have, let's say, infinite time to consult the doctor. No, Okay, so once he's given the chance to consult the doctor, he can be interrupted anytime and he can be moved out of the consultation chamber anytime. So that depends again on the scheduler. So how much time is given for each patient to consult the doctor depends on the scheduler. Okay, and the algorithm that you have selected. Okay, or the set of rules that you have selected. Getting this? So example I'll give. So you out of 10 patients, uh, the attender will give one chance to, so let's say, patient number 7 to consult the doctor. Okay, he enters the chamber to consult the doctor. So once he enters the chamber, let's say 2 minutes have elapsed, 2 or 3 minutes have elapsed. uh, After 2 minutes, let's say one more patient comes, the patient number 11 will come in. So he is having high priority. So high priority in the sense, let's say he is the friend of the doctor. So then what the scheduler or the attender will do is, he will go and preempt that patient. It is patient number 7. He will preempt it and he will forcefully move that patient number 7 outside the consulting chamber, and this new patient, who is patient number 11, who is having high priority because he is the friend of the doctor, he will be given the chance to consult the doctor. So like this. So how much time will be given for the consultation, it depends on the algorithm and the scheduler. So in the same way here also in preemptive scheduling, so how much time each process gets the CPU to use the CPU depends on the algorithm. Okay. So but once you give the CPU, you have all the permission to take away the CPU also at any given point of time. So that is what is the concept of preemptive scheduling. So each process will get its a chance to execute each process in the ready queue. When and how often each process gets its chance to execute depends on the type of algorithm that is used. Okay, when and how often. So that is what. So out of 10 patients, who will get the chance to execute and how much time will be given to him, and for one consultation, let's say he may not be satisfied. He may want multiple consultations with the doctor. So once he gets the consultation from the doctor, so he may come and sit back in the queue so that he can wait for the second consultation. That is also possible. So in this case, so let's say a process or a task requires 10 seconds to complete its job. Okay, so it requires 10 seconds of CPU time to complete its job. So let's say that process is process number 7, and that process number 7 gets the chance to use the CPU. Okay, so it is given the CPU. So, but it is not given the CPU for all the 10 seconds. Let's say it is given the CPU for only 2 seconds. So as soon as 2 seconds gets over, so the CPU will be taken away from the process number 7, and process number 7, as we know, so it requires 10 seconds to complete, but it has got only 2 seconds now. So still it wants 8 seconds of the CPU time to complete. So then what P7 process 7 will do is, it will go back to the ready queue and wait there again for its turn once again. So once again it will get its turn so that it can again use the CPU. So because it wants totally 10 seconds. Okay, so that is what is when and how often. So next, the scheduler can preempt, stop temporarily the current executing task and select another task from the ready queue for execution. That is what. At any given point of time, you can take away the CPU. When to preempt a task and which task is picked up from the ready queue for the execution is purely dependent on the algorithm. So that is what I told. Okay, so who will be given the next chance and how much time will be given for each patient to consult the doctor depends on the scheduler or the attender. Fine. So a task is preempted by the scheduler, it is moved to ready queue. So as soon as you take away the CPU forcefully from a process, that process or task will be moved back to the ready queue. So remember there are three queues: ready queue, job queue, and device queue. Fine. So the act of moving running process or task into ready queue by the scheduler without the process requesting for it is known as preempt. Okay, so the process which is running or the task which is currently running, it doesn't want to actually give away the CPU. It wants to complete its execution. But even though it doesn't want to give it away, so the scheduler will forcefully deallocate the CPU from it, and it forcefully moves it from the running state to the ready state, which is known as preemption. There are two approaches: time-based preemption and priority-based preemption. Okay, so time-based, because so each patient will be given, let's say, 10 minutes to consult the doctor. So after that 10 minutes is over, so that patient will be forcefully moved out of the consulting chamber. And if he wants to consult the doctor once again or further, so he can wait in the ready queue. Or if he is satisfied with the 10 minutes he is given, he can go off. So in this example, suppose the process wants 10 seconds to complete, and the process is given, each process is given 10 seconds to complete, then the process need not wait again. So it has completed, so it can go out of the ready queue. So only the processes which need the CPU will be in the ready queue. Yeah, so the first type of uh, preemptive scheduling is preemptive SJF. So SJF stands for shortest remaining time or shortest job first. SJF means shortest job first. Okay, so here the the process whose remaining time to complete, whose remaining service time to complete is less, that will be given the chance first. Okay, so if we compare this with the example of the clinic, okay, so then let's say there are 10 patients. So out of 10 patients, let's say patient number 7, like patient number 5, let's say patient number 5, he has to consult the doctor only to show the medicines that he has procured. That's all. Okay, so he has already consulted the doctor. So the doctor gave some prescription. So he has purchased the prescription. That is nothing but the medicines. So that patient number 5 just has to show the medicine to the doctor and get his, let's say, acknowledgement. So saying that the medicines are fine. So only that much is the job of process 5. So so that will take very less time, right? So let's say it will take 1 or 2 minutes. That's all. So just he goes in, shows the medicines and come out. So in this case, out of 10 patients, patient number 5 will be given the first chance to consult the doctor. Why? Because his consulting time is very less. He needs very less time to consult. So in this case, in terms of process or task, that process or task service time or the time for its completion is very less. So such process or task will be given the chance to execute first. So hope you are getting. Okay. So don't worry about this. So the preemptive SJF scheduling. So what it will do is it will sort the ready queue when a new process enters the ready queue and checks whether the execution time of the new process is shorter than the remaining of the total estimated execution time of the currently executing process. So this is the concept behind preemptive SJF, shortest job first. So remember, it will sort the ready queue whenever a new process arrives. So this you have to remember. So I'll explain this with an example later. Right? So it will sort the ready queue according to the shortest remaining time, shortest estimated execution time of the processes in the ready queue, and whichever process or task is having less uh, estimated completion time, so that will be given the first chance. Okay. If execution time of new process is less, the currently executing process is preempted and new process is scheduled for execution. So always compares the execution completion time of a process entered the ready queue with the remaining time of the completion of currently executing process and schedules the process with shortest remaining time for execution. Okay, so this is very important. So I'll explain this with an example now. So what is the example? So there are three processes with IDs, so P1, P2, P3, with estimated completion time of 10, 5 and 7 milliseconds. So three processes and their completion times are, for P1 it is 10 milliseconds, for P2 it is 5 milliseconds, and for P3 it is 7 milliseconds. Okay, so these are the estimated completion times. So that is, they want to use the CPU. So let's say P1, it wants to use the CPU for 10 milliseconds, then only it will complete its operation. So P2, it wants to use the CPU for 5 milliseconds, then only it can complete. So if it is given less than 5 milliseconds of CPU time, it will not complete. It will again go back to the ready queue and wait. Okay. So similarly, P3 requires 7 milliseconds, and it is given that these enter the ready queue together. So these three processes enter the ready queue simultaneously. So what is the ready queue? So ready queue contains all the processes which are ready to execute. That is, they are waiting for the CPU to complete their execution. So they already have all the resources they require to let's say carry on the execution, but they only require CPU. So only such processes are kept in ready queue. Okay. So now all these three enter the ready queue simultaneously. So a new process P4 with estimated completion time 2 milliseconds enters the ready queue after 2 milliseconds. So one more process P4 will enter the ready queue after 2 milliseconds. Okay, so let's say if you consider at time 0, only P1, P2 and P3 enter the ready queue. Okay, so after 2 milliseconds of these entering the ready queue, one more process P4 will enter the ready queue. And what is its estimated completion time? 2 milliseconds. Assume all processes contain only CPU operation and no IO operation. So this is a very important assumption. So all these processes P1, P2, P3 and P4, they require only CPU to complete their operation, but no IO operation. So that is, they are not waiting for any inputs from other device or a key press like that. Okay. So whenever there is no IO operation, remember there will be no blocked state. Okay, there will be no blocked state. So I'll go back to this. So this is, if you remember the process cycle. So this is the block state. So when a process enters the block state, whenever the running process wants an input from other device, or it wants to perform an IO operation, or it wants, let's say, a key press event to happen, then it goes to blocked state. So that is the use of blocked state. Getting what I'm saying? So in this example, he says there are no IO operations. That means there will be no blocked state at all. Okay, so we have to remove this. There is no blocked state at all. Fine. So for the example that we are discussing, there is no blocked state. So what are the states available? Ready and running. So we assume that it is the processes are already created and then they are already waiting in the ready queue and completed. So only we are dealing with three states: ready, running and completed. Okay, remember this. That is what is the assumption. There is no IO, so only ready and running. So running means it is currently using the CPU. Ready means it is currently waiting for the CPU. Completed means it has completed its operation. So again we'll go through these definitions here. So what do you mean by waiting time? What do you mean by turnaround time? So after this, so this is the example. What we have to find out is we have to find out average waiting time of for each process for that example, and we have to find out average turnaround time for all the processes. Okay, so waiting time for each process, waiting time for turnaround time for each process, then average waiting time and average turnaround time. So that is what we have to find out for this example. Okay, so I'll start with, so before yeah, I'll start with the diagram now. So job queue, ready queue and device queue. So in this case, so we are dealing with only ready queue because there is no IO operation, only ready queue is there. Ready queue and running, that's all. Okay. So I'll start with the diagram now. So what is this diagram is? So there will be a queue like this. So what is this queue? This is the ready queue. So I'll write this ready queue. This is a queue or a list that will be maintained by the OS. So for this example, he says P1, P2 and P3 enter the ready queue simultaneously. So in this ready queue, so three processes enter this queue simultaneously. Which are those processes? P1, P2 and P3. So these enter simultaneously and at time 0. So that is before execution starts, they are already in the ready queue. Okay. So after 2 milliseconds, okay, after 2 milliseconds of the commencement of execution, one more process will enter, which is P4. So let's say P4 will come here. Okay. Fine, are you getting this? So this is what the ready queue will look like at 2 milliseconds. So this is at 2 milliseconds. Okay. So with 4 processes. So hope you are getting this. Fine. So now initially I will consider that only 3 processes are there in the ready queue. So at time 0. So I'll start with time 0. This will give the execution, uh, you can say sequence. Fine. So bear with the diagrams because I'm using a mouse, so I'm not using a pen. Okay. So now P1, P2, P3. Fine. They are in the ready queue at time 0. So to understand this, so first we have to draw a table, or we have to construct a table. Okay. So what is this table? What this table will do is, so it will have the information regarding, okay, so the information regarding the processes. So there will be 3 columns in this table. So if shortest job first preemptive SJF is given, so first you have to construct a table like this. So what is this? The first column is process name, or just you can say process. So next column is arrival time. So at what time they have arrived, and this is service time. So what is the total service time they require to complete their operation? So this is the table you have to construct. Okay. So what is the process name? We'll come to this later. So process name is P1. Okay. So what is its arrival time at 0 milliseconds? So it has come at 0 milliseconds. Okay. That is before the execution starts. And what is the service time? Service time is nothing but the time it requires to complete. So that is estimated completion time. So what is the estimated completion time of P1? It is 10 milliseconds. Okay. 10 milliseconds. Right? So what is the next process that is present in the ready queue? So it is P2. So when it has arrived, again it has arrived at 0 milliseconds only. And what is its service time? What is the service time? What is the completion estimated completion time of P2? It is 5 milliseconds. Okay, remember, so it is 5 milliseconds. Okay. Then one more process is also in the ready queue, which is P3. So when it has arrived, again it has arrived at 0 milliseconds only. So what is its completion time? So according to the problem, it is 7 milliseconds. And so this is the table you have to construct. So as soon as you construct the table, so now you have to decide out of these 3 processes, which process you will give the chance first to start its execution. So remember, it is shortest, or you can say it is preemptive SJF. The algorithm that you are using is preemptive SJF. Okay, preemptive SJF. Fine. So according to this, so what you have to do, you have to always assign, or you have to always give the process the first, you can say priority, or you can say it always give the chance to the process which is having less completion time to first complete itself. Okay, so that is the concept. So here the service times are 10, 5 and 7. So out of these 3 service times, which process is having the lowest service time, or which process is having the lowest estimated completion time, which is P2, which is because 5 milliseconds. It is 5 milliseconds, right? It is having 5 milliseconds of estimated service time. So out of this, minimum is 5 milliseconds. So P2 will get the chance to execute. So hope it is clear. So you have to give the chance. You have to give the chance to P2 first to start its execution at 0 milliseconds. Why? Because it is having the least estimated completion time among these 3 processes. that is P1, P2, P3, which are in the ready queue at that particular moment. Okay, at that particular moment. Fine. Yeah, so P2 will get the chance. So I'll write it as P2 here. So P2 will get its chance to execute at 0 milliseconds. Fine. Okay. Once you give the chance to P2, how long P2 can run or how long P2 can utilize the CPU? So that depends on the ready queue and any new processes coming. Why? Because in SJF, what will happen is, so the ready queue will be sorted whenever new process enters the ready queue. So you have to resort this queue whenever a new process enters the ready queue. So at time being, what will happen is, since P2 is given the chance to execute, so P2 is not present in the ready queue now. So because P2 is already running here. So since it is already running, it will not be in the ready queue. Okay. So now at 2 milliseconds, okay, at what time? At 2 milliseconds. So 2 milliseconds, a new process is entering the ready queue. So which is that process? P4. So P4 is entering the ready queue. Okay. At what time? At 2 milliseconds. So after the start of execution, after 2 milliseconds, one more process P4 is entering the CPU. Sorry, the ready queue. So then what will happen now? So you have to write down P4 here. But remember, P4 is not entering at 0 milliseconds, it is entering at 2 milliseconds. And what is the estimated completion time? So the estimated completion time of P4 is also 2 milliseconds. Okay. So as soon as P4 enters the ready queue, so this ready queue will be sorted now. Why? Because that is the concept of preemptive SJF. So it's here. So ready queue enters. So this ready queue will be sorted, and how it will be sorted depending on the shortest estimated execution time. Okay. Yeah. So you have to sort this according to shortest execution time. So to do that, first what we'll do is, what is the completion time? What is the estimated completion time? 2 milliseconds of P4. So now P2 has executed for 2 milliseconds already. From 0 to 2 milliseconds, it has already executed. So it requires totally 5. So out of 5 milliseconds, so how much is remaining? So it's 5 minus, or you can say you can add a new column here. Insert a column to right. So what is this column? So this will have, what is the remaining time still? So 5 out of 5, P2 has run for 2 milliseconds. So what is the remaining time? 3 milliseconds. So what is the remaining time of P1? Since you have not yet executed it, so it is 10 minus 0. So this is, since you have not yet given it the chance to execute. So it is 10 minus 0, it is still 10. Okay. So what about P3? So it is 7 minus 0 equal to again 7 only, because you are not yet given the chance for P3 also to execute. You have only given the chance for P2 to execute. Okay. So how much you have given? 2 milliseconds. So why you have taken 2 milliseconds only? Because at 2 milliseconds a new process is entering the CPU. That is why you are calculating this at time 2 milliseconds. So you are calculating it at 2 milliseconds. What is the remaining estimated execution time? And what about P4? So it has just arrived. So the estimated completion time is 2. So now out of this estimated completion times, which is having the minimum estimated completion time? P1 requires still 10 milliseconds. P2, which required 5, now requires only 3 because it has already executed for 2 milliseconds. P3, it still requires 7 milliseconds because you are not yet given it the chance. P4, it requires only 2 milliseconds to complete its operation. So now, if you see or if you compare this, okay, and which is having the minimum value? P4. So P4 is having the minimum estimated completion time. So then what will happen is, immediately P2 will be preempted. Okay, so at what time it will be preempted? 2 milliseconds. Why? Because a new process P4 has come up whose estimated time is 2 milliseconds, estimated completion time is 2 milliseconds, which is less than the remaining time of P2, which is 3 milliseconds. So that is why P2 will be preempted. That is, it will be moved back to the ready queue. Okay. So now which will be given the chance? P4. So P4 will be given the chance to execute. Why? Because it is having the least estimated completion time among these four processes. Okay, fine. So P4 will be given the chance. So how long P4 will be given the chance? So now, so after P4, no new process will enter the ready queue, correct? So you need not sort the ready queue once again. No need to sort the ready queue once again. Okay. So P4, since it wants 2 milliseconds and after 2 milliseconds it will complete, P4 will get 2 milliseconds of time to complete. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So at 4 milliseconds, this P4, process P4 completes. It completes off. Getting what I'm saying? It will complete off. So now, which are the remaining processes? So if P4 has already completed, so P4 is gone. So only the processes remaining are P1, P2, P3. So again, you have to add a new column here. So at what time you have to add the new column? At time 4 milliseconds. So at time 4 milliseconds, because the present time is 4. So what is the estimated completion time of P1? So it is still 10 minus 0 only, because you are not yet given it the chance to execute. Okay, remember this. So what about P2? So it is not 5 because you already given it chance. So it has become 3. So 3 minus 0 equal to 3. And this one is 7 minus 0. So still it has not yet got the chance to execute. 7. So no. So remaining are only 3 processes, P1, P2, P3. So you have to sort, or you have to give the chance according to these 3 processes. So which is having the minimum time here among these 3? So again, if you see, P2 is having the minimum estimated completion time, which is 3. So again, P2 will get its chance to execute. Right? So from 4, how long it will execute? So how much time it will require? 3 milliseconds. So let's say another 3 milliseconds, that is at 7 milliseconds. At 7 milliseconds, P2 will complete its execution because it has got total 5 milliseconds. So 2 here and 3 here, 5. Okay. So now we have to add one more column here to insert a new column. So at what time? So it is at time. What is the time you have to take? It is 7 milliseconds. At 7 milliseconds. So what is the completion time of P1? It still requires 10 only because you have not yet given it the chance. So what is this? P2, it is completed. Completed. And what about P3? So it is still 7 minus 0, which is 7 only. So what about P4? It is completed. So when did it complete? At 4 milliseconds only it completed. Okay, fine. So now, so P4 has completed off and P2 has also completed off. So remaining are only P1 and P3. So out of P1 and P3, which is having the minimum value? P3, because it is estimated completion time is 7. So now P3 will get its chance. How long it will get its chance? For 7 milliseconds. So from 7 till 14. Totally it requires 14. So P3 will get its chance and it also completes at 14 milliseconds. So now only the remaining process is P1. P1 will get the chance at last. And how much time it requires? How much time it requires? 10 milliseconds. So starting from here, So starting from 14, it requires 10 milliseconds. So 24. Okay, so total 24. This is the order of execution. Okay, so that is what is given here also. Okay, along with experience. So this P2 will get the chance for P4, then P2, P3, and P1. So that is what is here also. Okay. So we can mark the time here. So between this and this, so it is 2. From here to here, it is again 2. From here to here, it is 3. So 4 to 7. From 7 to 14, it is 7. And from 14 to 24, it is 10. This is the order of execution. So next thing you have to do is find out the waiting time of each process. So what do you mean by waiting time? Waiting time is nothing but total time spent in the ready queue before it gets the CPU. Okay, before it gets the CPU, what is the total waiting? Total time it requires for total time it has waited in the ready queue. So WT. Sorry about this. WT for first I'll consider it for P1. So how long it has waited in the ready queue? Okay, how long it has waited in the ready queue to get its chance to execute in the CPU. So when it has got the chance at the last. Okay, so when it got the chance at 14 milliseconds, it has got the chance. So the waiting time for P1 is 14 milliseconds. So this amount of time it has waited in the ready queue to get its chance to start execution. Okay, fine. So that is what is written here also. You can see. So waiting time for P1 is 14 milliseconds. So now, what about waiting time of P2? So this will be interesting now. What is the waiting time for P2? So when P2 got the chance to execute, so it initially got the chance at 0 itself. You can see this order. It got the chance to execute at 0 itself. Okay. So 0. Okay. It got the chance to execute at 0 itself. So that means it has not waited at all. But at 2 milliseconds, at this particular point, that is at 2 milliseconds, it was preempted because one more job or one more process P4, which was having less or shorter expected completion time came up, correct? That is why P4 was given the chance, P2 was preempted, and P2 was, since it was preempted, it waited in the ready queue. How long it waited? So from 2 to 4. From 2 to 4 it waited, so that is for 2 milliseconds it waited, and again after 2 milliseconds it got its chance to execute and it completed off at 7 milliseconds. Okay, then that means initially it didn't wait at all, so 0 plus, so after that it waited for 2 milliseconds to get again its chance to execute and it completed off. It again didn't wait at all in the ready queue. Total waiting time for P2 is 2 milliseconds. Okay, so if you see this here also, so waiting time for P2 is 0 plus, so 4 minus 2, which is 2 milliseconds. That is what. Okay, so it has waited for 2 milliseconds to get it. So now, what about waiting time for P3? So when did P3 get its chance to execute? P3 got the chance to execute at 7 milliseconds. So that means it has waited from 0 to 7. Okay, so that is, you can write it as 7 minus 0 or directly 7 also, no problem. And once it got its chance to execute, it completed off at 14. So it didn't wait again in the ready queue. So totally it is 7 milliseconds. This is the waiting time for P3 here, 7 milliseconds. Okay, and what about the waiting time for P4? This is again interesting, very important. Concentrate here. So what is the waiting time for P4? So you might think it is 2, right? Because it got the execution chance at 2 milliseconds, but that is wrong. It is not 2. It is actually the waiting time for P4 is 0. Why? Because when did P4 arrive in the ready queue? When did P4 arrive in the ready queue? At 2 milliseconds, correct? It arrived at 2 milliseconds, and as soon as it arrived at 2 milliseconds, it got its chance to execute at also 2 milliseconds only. So it came at 2 milliseconds and it got the execution chance at also at 2 milliseconds. So did it wait? No, it didn't wait. So as soon as it came, it got its chance to execute. So that is why waiting time for P4 is 0 milliseconds. This is very important. So waiting time also depends on when the process arrived at the ready queue. Okay, you have to always keep track of this. When did the process arrive? Based on that only you have to calculate the waiting time. Okay, so P4 arrived at 2 and it got the chance at 2 itself. So that is why waiting time for P4 is 0. Okay, so where is that? So waiting time is 0 for P4. So then how will you find out average waiting time? You have to take the average of all the 4. Fine. So take the average. So I'll open the calculator. Okay. So waiting time for P1 is 14 plus waiting time for P2 is 2 plus waiting time for P3 is 7 plus sorry, so I'll clear it. So I'll start with first waiting time for P1 is 14 milliseconds plus waiting time for P2 is 2 milliseconds plus waiting time for P3 is 7 milliseconds and waiting time for P4 is 0 milliseconds. Total is 23 divided by, since it is average, so how many processes are there? 4, so it is divided by 4. So it is 5.75 milliseconds. So that is what we have got here also. So average waiting time. Okay, very important. So this is how we got the waiting time. What about TAT, turnaround time? So what is the definition for TAT? So I'll go back this. So this turnaround time definition is, so it is the amount of time taken by a process for completing its execution. Okay, for total time taken by it for completing its execution. So it includes, okay, so remember it includes time spent by the process for waiting for the main memory. So this is not considered in this example. Why? Because he says already they are in the ready queue. So since they are in the ready queue, this will not be there. So it will not wait for getting the, it will not wait for any time for getting the memory. Since it has already got the memory, that it is in the ready queue. So it is eliminated. Time spent in the ready queue. So this is there, plus time spent on IO. So this is also not there. Why? Because so in the question itself it is clearly given there are no IO operations. Okay, and what is the other thing remaining? Time spent in execution. So this is there. So only two things you have to consider for this example to find out TAT. So first thing is time spent in the ready queue. Next one is time spent in execution. So now first question is, what is time spent in ready queue? This is nothing but the waiting time. So this waiting time we already found out, is it not? Yes. And what about this time spent in execution? This is nothing but service time. Service time of the individual process. Service time. Hope it is clear, right? So then what will be TAT equal to? So TAT, turnaround time for each process, will be equal to waiting time plus execution time. Okay, so this is how you can find out TAT. So now we'll come to this example. Right? So I'll like first find out TAT for P1. So TAT for P1 is equal to, first you have to take the waiting time for P1. So what is the waiting time for P1? 14 milliseconds. So this is the waiting time plus. So what is the formula for TAT? It is the waiting time plus execution time or service time. Execution time is nothing but service time. So what is the service time for, which is the process P1? What is the service time for P1? What is the service time? Service time for P1 is 10 milliseconds. Okay. So it is 14 plus 10 milliseconds, which is equal to 24 milliseconds. So this is the turnaround time for P1. Hope you are getting. So I'll cross verify this with the example that we are taking it. So here turnaround time for P1 is 24. That is what we got, right? Okay, so we'll take TAT turnaround time for P2. So what is turnaround time for P2? First it is waiting time for P2. What is waiting time for P2? It is only 2 milliseconds. 2 milliseconds plus execution time. Execution is time nothing but service time. What is the service time for P2? 5 milliseconds. So it is 2 plus 5 equal to 7. Fine. So you can cross verify that here. So TAT for P2 is 7. Next, what about TAT for P3? So what is the waiting time for P3? 7 milliseconds plus service time for P3. Service time for P3 is 7 milliseconds. So this is where the table comes in useful. Okay, 7 plus 7 equal to 14 milliseconds. That is for P3. So yeah, so we're in the right track. So next, the last one is TAT for P4. So what is the waiting time for P4? 0. Waiting time is 0. Plus what is the service time for P4? Service time 2 milliseconds. So 0 plus 2, it is 2 milliseconds. Okay, so that is what we got here. For P4 is 2 milliseconds. So now again, how will you get the average? So go to the calculator. Okay, so I'll add. So I'll first clear the entry. So waiting TAT for P1 is 24 plus TAT for P2 is 7 plus TAT for P3 is 14 plus TAT for P4 is 2. So it is 47, and since we want the average 47 by 4, because there are 4 processes, so it is 11.75. So is it correct here? Yes, it is. Okay. So hope you got how to find out this. This is very important. So if you remember this properly, we can do the related problems very easily, because next thing is round robin scheduling again. So there will be some concept change, but these calculations, the formulas and the concepts will be same. Okay. So I shall explain this round robin scheduling, that is preemptive round robin scheduling, in the next lecture. Thank you.